What's up guys, and welcome to my video where I tell you about 5 underrated haunted house movies. 5 movies that I enjoy that I don't tend to see people talk about very much. So often I'm busy talking about the best, ranking from worst to best, but not too often do I stop just specifically to tell you about films that you should be checking out, that should be on your radar if they weren't already. And this video is going to be sponsored by the awesome people over at Shudder. Now, as April kicks off, we are now halfway to Halloween. And halfway to Halloween Ends coming out, am I right? Yeah, I'm excited too. Anyway, halfway to Halloween is something that Shudder does every single year, and they celebrate this by adding a bunch of horror favorites to their current library, also by premiering new seasons of some of their original series and some original movies that you cannot see anywhere else but on Shudder. Shudder is the premier streaming service for the best selection of horror, thriller, and supernatural movies and TV series. With Shudder, you can view dozens of uncut and commercial-free Hollywood favorites and cult classics, as well as critically acclaimed original series and films that you cannot find anywhere else. If you're a horror fan like myself, then Shudder is an absolute must-have for your streaming service library, so please check out the video description down below for my link to sign up for their service and my exclusive discount code LEACH30, which is going to give you a 30-day free trial. That's an entire month completely cost-free to check out all of the different titles available on Shudder, including a few haunted house movies that I won't even be talking about in this video, like the original House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, like the Hell House LLC trilogy. It is all on Shudder, so check it out down below and become a subscriber to the best streaming service for horror fans. Alright, so as far as my list, guys, these is in no particular order. I'm not ranking them from worst to best. These are 5 movies that I encourage you to check out, every single one of them. If my descriptions of them and the clips that I show entice you to check them out, definitely give them a shot, because all 5 of these movies are awesome to me and they don't really get talked about enough, which is why I wanted to do this video. So starting off at number 5 is going to be a movie that came out pretty recently and really went under the radar, and that is The Dark and the Wicked. Shout out to my buddy Blake Garner, because he's actually the one that sent me the Blu-ray for this, and me and my wife watched it. And I was really impressed at this movie above all else with how much it was just honing in on old school scares, old school horror. This is not a movie that's trying to have a bunch of jump scares. It's not Hollywoodizing the haunted house genre. It's not trying to build up with a bunch of false jump scares or rising the score. It doesn't play by all of the rules of the movies that we typically see in the theaters in this genre. This is a movie that just sets up this creepy premise. This brother and sister go back home to their old family farmhouse because their father just died, and the night that they get there, their mother chops off all of her fingers and hangs herself in the barn. Do I need to say anything else? Sounds fucked up, doesn't it? Yes, it is. And so from that point forward, it's just all of these really creepy paranormal events. It's them seeing things out in the fields. It's them hearing things in the house, discovering certain things that might lead to very malevolent forces just honing in on this little barn and honing in on this little farming house. And so I'm not going to tell you anything else about the story. That is enough of a setup to get you enticed if you're interested in this type of a flick, but I loved how old school creepy this was. And if you're a longtime horror fan, you know what I'm talking about when I say old school creepy. Number 4 is actually a remake. Never seen the original, need to put that out there. The Uninvited. This is a movie that is an American remake off of a film, I believe it was titled The Tale of Two Sisters. So if you've seen that, you know what this is about. If you haven't, I've only seen the American version. I think the American version is pretty damn good. So can't speak to which one is better, but it's a story about a girl that has this traumatic event regarding her mother's death, comes back home after being in a mental hospital for so long that she's put back into her family. Her father, who was just widowed with this event that made her go into this mental institution, is now dating or engaged to their nanny, played by Elizabeth Banks. And her sister are essentially trying to investigate what's going on with this girl, what's going on with this nanny, because creepy things are happening in this house. Like, they're seeing things, the girl's seeing dead bodies, there's people that are showing up dead, she's having these visions at night. There's something creepy going on within this house or with this nanny, and the whole movie is trying to uncover what exactly is going on. And this is one of the few times that, as many times as I'm able to just see through a movie's plot, the way that things played out in the third act of this film genuinely caught me by surprise. So not only is it a very good movie and a very creepy movie, but it's got some surprises in store for you. Number 3 is an absolute classic in my mind, and that is The Frighteners. Now, this is a film that was very popular in my mind when it came out, but obviously it wasn't very popular longevity-wise because nobody seems to talk about this damn thing. This is a Peter Jackson movie. Yes, that Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings guy. And this is a straight-up horror comedy. This is a movie about Michael J. Fox, who is clairvoyant. He can talk to ghosts, he can see ghosts, and he utilizes them to have like this little con business where he sends them to people's houses, creates a haunting, and then they call him to come in and exorcise the ghosts, and he takes the money for it. And eventually he comes across a spirit that actually is killing people in this small town. And I just think it's an absolutely brilliant horror comedy. I love Michael J. Fox. This is one of like the last major studio movies that I saw him in before his illness started to take over, so always a little bit bittersweet for that. But all of the surrounding cast, I mean, you got Jake Busey, who's great in this. Dee Wallace is awesome in this movie. Just, I'm telling you, if you like horror comedies, if you like paranormal movies and haunting movies, this is one that I have never understood how more people don't talk about it, because to me this is an absolute gem of the 90s. Going back to another remake is another film where I have never seen the original, and I don't honestly have any interest in watching the original. I don't think that I would like it. Is 13 Ghosts. Now, for all of the movies that came out in the early 2000s, I mean, the 2000s horror is either something that you grew up with and you loved, or it's like the blunt end of a joke. Everybody talks about like this horrible era in horror where things were just over studioized. And 13 Ghosts is one of those hidden gems of that era. It's a remake of an old Vincent Price movie, but it is so modernized. You basically have this house that's like a giant Rubik's Cube. It's a giant puzzle box, and this family gets invited in, they've inherited it, and as this house gets activated and slowly like closes itself up, ghosts are released. These malevolent spirits are released in the house. And I'm telling you right now, if nothing else, the creature designs and the little bit of backstory that we get for each of these individual ghosts in this movie are just so awesome that I would almost watch like a Netflix series where each episode dives into how each of these spirits, each of these ghosts got created. And they're genuinely creepy. Like as soon as you feel like you've seen the creepiest one, there's another one that's even creepier. So for that creativity alone, that has always made this movie stand out. But it's got a great cast. You got Tony Shalhoub here as the father of this family. You got Shannon Elizabeth back in that era where she was in a lot of movies in the late 90s, early 2000s after American Pie. Matthew Lillard is fucking awesome in this movie. God, that guy's a gem. Matthew, come back. Come back and do some more horror movies, dude, because I miss you. But this is genuinely just one of those gems of that era. I think that it is fun. I think that it's got some good humor to it. There's some good gore in there. And I genuinely love the designs of these ghosts. Really quick before I debut my number 1, guys, I want to tell you about a film that is debuting exclusively on Shudder today. As you watch this video, it has premiered, and that is called The Cellar. The Cellar is an Irish horror film starring Alicia Cuthbert, telling the story of a woman whose daughter mysteriously vanishes in the cellar of their new home. Cuthbert's character discovers an ancient and powerful entity that is controlling their home and has to battle for the souls of her family. So when you're done with this top 5 and after you've signed up for the awesome service at Shudder, definitely check out this new film, The Cellar, and let me know down in the comment section what you thought of it. Number 1 for me is actually a movie that I grew up watching on a VHS tape and has always been one of my guilty pleasures, and that is the original House. And House 2 are actually on Shudder, so check those out. The original House is a movie that my uncle gave us a bunch of VHS tapes that he was trying to get rid of, and we had like the original Phantasm and a bunch of things that were like homemade, recorded, and I remember House, just the cover of it. It was just this severed hand, this zombie hand, going to press a doorbell, and my young horror fanatic self was like, I need to watch this. And I've always enjoyed this movie. It's a guilty pleasure because it's definitely a cheese fest. This is a movie that is one of those horror comedies that I feel like you kind of had to grow up with a little bit. It does require some nostalgia. If I watched it for the first time today, I probably wouldn't be putting it on this list, just full disclosure, but I really think it's a fun movie, and potentially if you do have kind of like a loose fandom with 80s horror comedies, you could watch it for the first time today and really enjoy it and get a kick out of it. But essentially this author moves into his aunt's house where his son disappeared because she just died. and he's starts to see that there's some things going on in this house that might have led to his aunt's death and actually might be still holding on to his son. So a little bit of a mysterious element in there. You get some good practical effects. You get some very corny practical effects. And there's this backstory about the Vietnam War that's brought in that comes full circle by the third act of the film, which gives me one of my favorite horror comedy villains of all time. So this is absolutely one of my cherished 80s horror comedies. I understand if you've seen it and you don't like it. I understand if it was not on this list anywhere close to your top 5. But for me, as a movie that I grew up enjoying as a kid and can still enjoy as an adult, and I never hear anybody talk about it, I need to change that. So check it out on Shudder. House. It's cool. Well, that's it, guys. That is 5 haunted house movies that I think are underrated, and I think that you should check them out. If you want to check out some of these, like my #1 house, please check out that link down below and become a subscriber to Shudder. Don't miss out on that 30-day free trial with my discount code LEACH30. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this. I have a lot of other rankings, not only just with horror, but other genres as well. I just got done doing a bunch of director rankings a couple of days ago, Wes Craven, Michael Bay, and of course, we just got done talking about Fantastic Beasts. So we're gonna talk about Harry Potter and the Wizarding World and everything leading up to next month's 31 on 31. So if you like any of that stuff, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss anything coming out in the future. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.